Alright, y'all. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're making a list of fighters in 2025 who just aren't considered good anymore. Now, hold up. I don't mean they suck. I'm talking about guys that where the narrative shift. Maybe it's age, maybe they're just clearly out of their prime. Now that I think about it, it's kind of the same thing. Or maybe the sport just passed them by, Maybe they got exposed. Or maybe the hype finally wore off. Either way, these are names I want to bring up and really dive into because it's interesting to see how quick the game moves and how fast the perception can change. With all that being said, let's get this started. Alright, so the first up on the list, and I know this one might ruffle some feathers, okay? We got T-City, Brian Ortega. Now, alright, I know what some of y'all are gonna say. Bro, he just beat Yair. He's 1-1 in his last 2 fights. Why are you hating? And to that I say, listen, dude. Yeah, he beat Yair Rodriguez. But let's be honest, Yair's takedown defense is barely hanging on. Like, we're talking about open mat at your local gym level kind of bad, okay? No disrespect, but if I shot a half decent double leg, I might actually take Yair down. That's how bad his defense is on the mat. So Ortega beating him doesn't really blow me away. That's Ortega's bread and butter, okay? But here's where it gets real. Ortega's 1-3 in his last 4 fights. And if you zoom out a little, the trend is obvious. He's fading. He's not evolving. And I think that's the real story people are missing. Part of the reason people still give him the benefit of the doubt is because he doesn't fight enough. He disappears for a year or 2, comes back with the cool walkout music, and people act like it's still 2018. But it's not. The division has passed him by, guys. Guys are getting sharper, faster, and more well-rounded while Ortega is still relying on his jiu-jitsu and his granted chin to survive. Yes, his grappling is legit. No one is denying that. But this is MMA. This is not a grappling match. If he can't get it to the mat, or if he's getting pieced up before he can even close the distance, that's when the jiu-jitsu becomes a non-factor. That's exactly what we saw with Volkanovski in his fight, the Holloway fight, and most recently with the Diego Lopez fight. He had no real answer on the feet, and by the time he tried to initiate the grappling, he was already behind and getting beat to the punch, literally. And let's talk about the elephant in the room, man. Ortega's striking is mid at best. I'm not saying that he hasn't improved since the early days, but it's still clunky, it still looks stiff, and it still relies way too much on grit instead of technique. He gets hit a lot. Like, bro, his main striking defense is his face. That's not a style. That's a problem, okay? That Max Holloway fight, he took a career-alter beating. Volk tuned them up. Even Diego Lopez, a newer name, made him look slow and lost in there. So yeah, people aren't really talking about it yet because Ortega's name still holds weight. He looks like a fighter, he's got the swagger, the BJJ credentials, all that. But when you really strip it all down, look at his fights, look at his skills, look at the results, he's not that guy anymore. And hey, none of this is personal, it's just the truth. He had his moments, but as of 2025, the game has moved on and he didn't. And to be real with you, I think Aljo's going to beat him up next. That's the next matchup, and I'm calling it right now. I think Ortega's going to get outstruck and outgrappled. Like, fully beat in both departments. And again, I'm not saying that Ortega's completely washed. I still think he's a top 15, maybe even floats around the bottom of the top 10 for another 2 or 3 years. But only because he barely fights. That's the real reason he's still hanging around. The less he shows up, the longer the illusion lasts, is in my opinion. Alright, so next up on the list, and honestly, this one shouldn't surprise anybody, we got Michael Chandler. Now look, Chandler has always been that guy, kill or be killed kind of fighter. Win or lose, you're getting fireworks. He brings the energy, the power, the big moments, and he made a career off that. But if we're gonna be real, in 2025, the man is 1-4 in his last 5 fights. And that one win was a highlight reel front kick knockout against Tony Ferguson, who, let's be honest, was already deep into his decline. You can honestly argue Chandler was never an elite fighter in the UFC. I know that sounds harsh, but go back and look. Every time he got a big moment, he came up short. Oliveira, Gaethje, Poirier. And even though he made it exciting, he lost them all. And back then, you could at least say, yeah, but they were competitive. That's not the case anymore. I mean, let's talk about the Charles Oliveira fight from UFC 309. Chandler did have his flash of success. He dropped Charles in the 5th. But outside of that, the man was getting ragdolled, controlled, outgrappled, outclassed. People barely talk about that because they focus on the knockdown. But the reality is, Charles dominated the positional exchanges. Chandler looked slower, less explosive, and his wrestling didn't matter once he got tired. and that's a red flag, especially for a guy who's built on explosiveness. Then came the Paddy Pimblett fight recently at UFC 314, and this was one that made everything clear. Chandler looked slow, his timing was off, and for the first time ever, he looked like he didn't belong in there. Paddy lit him up, stayed composed, and by round 3, Chandler was gassed and basically just absorbing punishment. It was like watching someone try to fight underwater. Even John McCarthy came out after and said Chandler looked mentally checked out. He looked too slow to survive in today's lightweight division. That's not just criticism, that's a career red flag. And we gotta be honest, you can literally see the wear and tear on his body now. The dude is built like an action figure, but there's that HGH gut starting to show that kind of screams, I'm trying to stay young, but the years aren't winning. He's 39 years old now, and unfortunately, Father Time is undefeated. That insane speed, that explosiveness that made Chandler dangerous, it's fading. And what makes this all more frustrating is that Chandler tried to evolve. He kept saying that he was going to be more patient. And we were all like, okay, maybe this is the version that puts it all together. But the truth is, patient Chandler isn't real. That's not who he is. Every time he tries to slow things down, he looks lost. He's second guessing himself. His timing is off. The dude's built for chaos, throwing bombs and making it ugly, just brawling. But that style only works when you're young and explosive. And at the age of 39, that's a one-way ticket to getting folded. And that's exactly what happened against Paddy. He looked like he was trying to find that in-between, not full brawler, not full technical, and instead he ended up being nothing at all. Just a guy who stays in the middle, getting picked apart by a fighter everyone thought he would walk through. And I mean, at almost 40 years old, you can't rely on closing the distance without defending, winging overhand rights with no setups, having no footwork, and the fight IQ of a brick. He slows down consistently, and all the shenanigans, the flexing, the backflips, the WWE promos, they won't cut anymore. So yeah, Chandler's still got name value. He's still going to get booked in fun fights. But if we're talking about where he stands competitively, he's not a contender anymore. Not even close. And if you can't beat Paddy Pimblett, a guy that most fans thought he was being protected, that might be the final chapter. Michael Chandler had his moments, made some noise, gave us some great wars, but the sad truth, the sport's evolving, he didn't, and now the mileage is catching up. Alright, next up on the list, we got Colby Covington. And look, I get it. He was once the cardio machine, the pressure king, the guy who made Kamaru Usman work harder than anyone else ever did. But that version of Colby, he's gone. And come on, man, let's stop pretending. Colby's 37 now, and he's lost 4 out of his last 6. That chaos persona might have been loud on the mic, but in the cage, it's looking real quiet. The last time Colby actually won a fight was years ago. He's been surviving off old hype and recycling promos for years now. It's the same script every time. Trash talk, walkout, pace, but the results aren't the same anymore. I mean, let's talk about the Leon Edwards fight at UFC 296, and bruh, Colby looked flat out cooked. Slow feet, no urgency, no fire, just a guy shadowboxing. While Leon's leg kicking him into another dimension, his wrestling was completely neutralized, and that legendary cardio everyone brags about, non-existent. He barely pushed the pace, and even admitted afterwards he broke his foot in round 1. Which, cool, but he was already looking washed before that. It wasn't just a bad fight, it was a bad sign. And then came the Walking Buckley fight, and man, that was the nail in the coffin, man. Buckley's a guy who dropped down from 185, who's known more for his power than his cardio. Not only outworked him, but actually out-wrestled him at some points. You're that right, Covington's supposed to be a cardio wrestling machine, and now he's getting reversed and controlled by a guy who used to fight at middleweight. And that's not even the worst part. Colby got TKO'd via doctor stoppage from a nasty cut over his eye in round 3. And even before that, he was getting touched up and looked slower than ever. And here's what's wild. The same guy who once threw over 500 strikes in a single fight now looks hesitant to even pull the trigger. He used to drown people with volume, and now he's stuck between trying to wrestle and realize his gas tank doesn't back it up anymore. A lot of people used to think his striking was underrated. I think we can put that myth to bed now. It was functional because of the pace. That's it. You take away the pace, there's not much left. And let's just keep it real. Colby's whole game has fallen off. His wrestling's getting stuffed, his striking's outdated, his footwork looks like he's moving in slow motion, and that chaos persona, it's old, it's tired, the whole MAGA gimmick, the fake sunglasses, the loudmouth stuff, it's not working anymore because he's not winning anymore. You can't talk like you're the boogeyman when you're on a losing streak getting outclassed. With all that being said, let's go up to the next fighter on the list, and I already know this one's gonna hurt some feelings. We got Israel Adesanya. Now let me be clear, I'm not saying that Izzy was great. The guy was a 2-time middleweight champ and built one of the most unique striking styles we've ever seen in the UFC, but If you're out here still acting like Adesanya is the boogeyman of the division in 2025, you're pretty much lying to yourself. Let's just lay it out how it is. He's 1-3 in his last 4, and the guy went from headlining packed arenas and styling on dudes to getting knocked out cold by Nasruddin Imavov in round 2, and that wasn't just a loss, that was a statement. A younger, fresher guy walking in and sending him to the Shadow Realm. That's now 3 straight losses for Izzy, and let's be honest, it's been trending this way for a minute. And before he got pieced up by Sean Strickland and then submitted by Dricus du Plessis, who literally told the media afterwards Izzy's best days are behind him, by the way, he was not wrong. Izzy used to be this, crazy sniper. He made guys miss. He controlled the distance. His timing was razor sharp. But now, bro, he's getting touched up. The reflexes have dipped. You can see it. He's not slipping shots the same like he used to. It was mainly that and that his competition just did get better. Back when Izzy was champ, the division was solid, but now it's stacked. Guys like Dricus, Imavov, Brendan Allen. They're not just dangerous, they're more well-rounded, more athletic, and they built their entire style around solving problems like Adesanya. The new wave isn't afraid to press him, clinch him, wrestle him, or even strike with him. The rest of the division has caught up and in some ways have passed him. The thing is, he's still got name value. He's still one of the most iconic fighters of the last decade, but competitively, he's no longer in the title mix. He's in survival mode. And look, I don't think Izzy's done. I'm not saying hang it up right, but if he doesn't evolve, if he doesn't switch things up, slow things down, maybe pick up better matchups, then he's just going to keep getting knocked down the ladder by the new blood. The sport doesn't wait for nobody. It doesn't care what you did 3 years ago. And right now, Izzy's stuck in the past while the future's out here head kicking him into it. With all that being said, the next fighter we have on the list is Jamahal Hill. Now look, I'm not here to hate on him. The dude's already gotten beaten up, too many times. But he kind of does it to himself. But, we got to go back in time, and I was hyped when he knocked Glover off and grabbed the belt. It was a feel-good moment. The dude went from Contender Series to UFC champion. All heart, all hands. But if we're being real, that Glover win aged like milk. He beat a 44-year-old legend on his way out. And ever since, it's been downhill fast. Hill is now 0-3 in his last 3 fights. And it's not like they were razor close split decisions. Nah, these were straight up beatdowns. First, he got flatlined by Alex Pereira at UFC 300. Early, violent, no controversy. Then he tries to turn around, but he gets finished by Yuri Prohaska. And if that wasn't enough, just recently, Khalil Roundtree Jr. beat the brakes off this man. Leg kicks, knockdown, volume. Khalil made it look easy. And that's what makes this worse. Hill is not just losing. He's getting figured out. The blueprint is out there. Pressure him, chop the legs, beat him to the jab, and don't let him set his feet. He's a long, rangy southpaw striker with sharp boxing, but once you take that rhythm away from him, there's no plan B. He's not shooting takedowns, he's not checking kicks, he's not adjusting mid-fight. He just eats damage. And bro, you can only do that for so long, especially at light heavyweight where everybody hits like a truck. When you're relying on that chin and timing alone, you're walking on a tight rope with no net. The scary part is, his title reign is already being called one of the weakest in recent memory. I saw someone online say he might be the least talented champion we've had at 205 in a decade. And the sad part is, you can kind of see that argument. I mean, he beat Glover, cool, but since then, every elite guy he faced has cooked him. It's like once he got that belt, the rest of the division woke up and said, yeah, nah, we're not gonna let this dude hold it for long. Let's talk technical too. He's got no wrestling threat, no clinch game, and the moment he starts getting leg kicked, the whole game falls apart. I mean, against Roundtree, it wasn't just a loss, it was a dismantling. Roundtree looked faster, sharper, more explosive, and more locked in. Hill looked like he was in sparring mode. The urgency wasn't there, the volume wasn't there, the answers weren't there. And look, Hill even admitted that after the Yuri fight that he needed to come back grittier. That's cool to say, but this ain't no movie, you know what I'm saying? Grit only gets you so far. You've got to make some real changes to your style. You got to evolve, And from what we've seen lately, he really hasn't. Like right now, Hill is sitting outside the title picture right now. He might not even be in the top 10 soon. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, all by finishes. And in this division, that starts to heat up. Even against guys with like Pereira, Roundtree, Rakic, and even Johnny Walker starting to look more dangerous, Hill looks like he's stuck in that style that he used to work. Stuck in that mindset that says hands alone will get it done. but hands ain't enough anymore, okay? Alright, with all that being said, this is the last one on the list, and this one goes for the hardcore, still holding on to that 2020 energy. We got Jan Blachowicz. Now listen, I'm not here to take away from what Jan's accomplished. He's a former champ, gave Israel Adesanya his first MMA loss, had a solid title reign, and gave us some memorable knockouts with that so-called Polish power. But if we're gonna be honest, man, in 2025, that version of Jan, it's gone. And truthfully, it's mostly an age thing. The dude is 42 years old. That's ancient in MMA history, especially at 205, where the damage stacks up fast. He's been doing this for over 20 years and has had over 40 plus fights under his belt. The body just doesn't respond the same way like it used to. The reflexes are slower, the reactions are dull, and the recovery is nowhere near what it used to be. Like, look at the facts, bro. Jan is 1-3-1 in his last 5 fights. And that one win came off an injury. I mean, Rakic blew his knee mid-fight. Since then, he had a draw with Ankalaev that most people thought he lost. He got beat down by Alex Pereira. And then recently, he got outclassed by Carlos Ulberg. And I mean, clearly outclassed. It wasn't close. Jan looked slow, stiff, and reactive. Like, he was stuck in sparring mode while Ulberg was running drills, you know? And again, it's not like Jan suddenly forgot how to fight. It's an age thing. The footwork's just not there anymore. He's flat-footed, he doesn't cut angles, and overextends on almost every shot trying to land with that big right. And when he misses, he's completely out of position. You know, too slow to recover, and ends up getting countered clean. Against a younger, faster guy like Ulberg, that's a recipe for disaster. And the problem isn't heart. Jan still shows it, you know, he's ready to bang, but that alone won't cut anymore. These new guys, they're evolving, they're faster, they're sharper, more well-rounded. They don't fear Jan's power. They see the telegraphing, they read the overhand, and they know he's not going to shoot for a takedown or a clinch battle. The game is moving forward, and Jan's stuck in a style that only works when your body is still like 35. And let's be real, even after the Ulberg fight, Jan tried to say that the judges got it wrong, but bro, that was not a robbery. That was a reality check. He got touched up the entire fight and had no answers. No urgencies, no tools, no speed. So yeah, Jan's a legend. Nothing but respect for what he done. But in 2025, the truth is, it's not about him being bad. It's about him being too old. And at this level, age doesn't just slow you down. It gets you beat badly. So yeah, that's my list. Some of these guys, they were legends, champs, real threats, but age caught up with them, the game evolved, and their time has passed. Others, honestly, maybe they weren't that good to begin with. Maybe the hype carried them further than their skills ever did. Maybe the right matchups made them look even better than they actually were. Either way, whether it's decline, exposure, or the cold truth settling in, they're not those guys anymore. And look, I'm not saying they're completely done. Some of them could still be mid-tier names or hold to a top 15 spot for a little while. But if we're talking about title runs, top contender status, legacy changing wins, the chapter is closed. The era is over. The new wave is here. And they're not just better, they're proving it every fight, you know?